Okay, we're on time as usual. We start exactly at 8 o'clock, plus or minus a few seconds. So, welcome, my friends. Welcome to our broadcast tonight. And what I'll do is play a little music before we get started so we get people in here before I start my topic. So, in the meantime, just to review the format, I talk for 30 minutes about the topic and the title, and then we go to Q&A, and then you can ask whatever you want, and it'll be free form. So if you don't want to stick beyond the 30 minutes because you're going to say the video is too long, it's not long. Leave at 30 minutes. So before we continue, let's play a little music here. Okay, guys, thank you for watching that. I think that did not stutter, right? I just reduced the resolution to 720p, so hopefully that was not stuttering, because before the audio would stutter with the video. So hey, thanks for listening to that, and just free form. I turned on the recorder and I made mistakes, and it doesn't matter because I just played it once. That was like one recording, one take, that's it. So kind of like live. So if I screw up in live, that's the way I would screw up in the recording. So, but I'm not near a piano here. So back in the old days, I would always broadcast by the piano and start. I would actually do my talk by the piano. So, are you a fan of Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater? Yeah, of course. I mean, keyboardist. So anyway, yeah, but I'm more of a jazz guy. So my yeah, my favorites would be more along the lines of like Herbie and Keith Jarrett and Brad Meldown and people like that. So Chick Corea, that kind of thing. So yeah, I could sit in a restaurant and play music for hours, I suppose. So I don't know, Star Path Academy. You can contact them, Brax me, and time is short, so we'll have to see what the schedule looks like. So anyway, the topic is about geofencing. Some people are wondering, and they've asked me because they've seen some videos or movies lately, and they're asking me about how the phones were tracked. And the official term is geofencing, and people are wondering how you do that, and can that actually be done, or can it be faked? And is it real, not real, and which phones can be victimized with this, and which cannot, and that kind of question. So we'll focus on that, just the technical aspects of this, and make it clear. So this is like location tracking on steroids. So let's just focus on that only here, location tracking. Now, of course, I have many videos on location tracking, but people are not really understanding or paying attention. So we're going to make this clear in this short talk here. So when you're talking about who's tracking the location, there are actually two entities involved. The HQ of the phone, meaning Google and Apple, is one group, and they have quite a bit of control. And then there's another side of it, which are all the apps that can track you and geolocate you and do geofencing. So let's talk about how geofencing is used. If there's a protest of some sort, you've seen this already used selectively. It's very interesting how it's selectively used. If they want to use it against you, they will. If they don't want to use it against you, they won't. So basically, it's very easy. They can go to Apple and Google, and basically they can plot out an area and say, there was a riot in Santa Monica, California during the beginning of COVID, and people broke into the businesses on 3rd Street, and people looted, and they can actually see on the TV camera the actual people looting on 3rd Street, and I guess it apparently didn't happen. So there's no discussion about that. But that's an area where, yes, law enforcement can easily do geofencing, which is they say, okay, we are tracking the people on 3rd Street, and so we can go to Google and Apple and say who was in this area, specific area, and what are the movements of those people in the area around a certain time. So they can do that. They can say, around this time there are people hovering around this particular store, and possibly some of the looters. Was that actually done? No. There's no evidence that they even bothered with that. So yeah, they looted, and the people looted the stores, and that's it. Insurance companies paid, and no big deal. That never heard of again. Selectively, though, I believe they tracked the people in the capital and did geofencing there, and then actually arrested many people in Washington, D.C., the ones who were in the area of the protest on January 6th. So they can do this. So there's no doubt it can be done, but how they use it is up to them. They can choose to use it or not to use it. But the thing is, it's a very easy thing to do. They obviously have to go to Apple or Google to do this in one method, the method I'm talking about, geofencing by actual phone location. And you go to Apple and Google, and they will provide that information. Typically, they probably need to issue a warrant, and then they can do that. So that's a very typical thing, and it happens all the time when there's criminal activity somewhere, or non-criminal activity, or whatever they classify as domestic terrorism. They can actually find people and trace. Now it actually is interesting because with the KC White affair recently with Casey White escaping from prison with what's the name of the woman? The woman White. And obviously they were smart. They didn't have any phone because they could have easily been tracked by phone. And yeah, so that's a case where somebody was smart enough to use a phone. So the main tracking is Google and Apple. Now, what is interesting about the Google and Apple tracking is you can't actually turn that off. There's no switch. There's no switch to turn it off. So if Apple and Google want to track you, then you're pretty much zucked. If you have an Apple iPhone and a standard Google Android, you're zucked. There's no solution. You can't solve that. You will be tracked. Now, if you have the Google phone, and this is a Pixel, which happens to be de-Googled, so this is running Lineage OS, or I have the Brax 2 phone, which got behind me here. Can't reach it right now, but there's there's a lot of Brax 2s behind me here. If you have a Brax 2 phone, yeah, that does not have Google or obviously no Apple. And so that part of the equation is gone. So there is on a Google phone, Google or Apple cannot track you 24/7. Want to make that clear. So the only possibility of not being tracked on a standard Apple or Google standard iPhone, well, you cannot be not tracked on an iPhone. You will be tracked on an iPhone. That's why an iPhone is really a bad solution, because there's no way to turn it off. Even if you turn the phone off, it's still tracking you. Because I've already explained, when the iPhone is off, it becomes an AirTag, so it's tracking you regardless of what you do. So if you have a de-Google phone or a Brax 2 privacy phone, that cannot be tracked by HQ, because there is no HQ. There's no login, there's no identity. Whereas if you have a Google ID or Apple ID, not only do they know your location, they know who you are because they know your Google ID and your Apple ID, and they know where you live because they have a history of your locations. So that's one side of it. The second side, there's actually three sides to the tracking, so I want to make sure you understand this. The second side to the tracking is the SIM card. The SIM card. Now, the tracking by SIM card can be done in various ways. They can just generalize and say who was in a specific zone. The problem is if you do it like that with just using tower triangulation, it's not very accurate on 4G or 3G. So, 5G is just happening now. So before 5G, the tracking is fairly limited, and it doesn't really give an exact location. It gives you more like a half square mile area, and you say, okay, you're somewhere in the vicinity of a couple of towers, but we don't know exactly where you are. So in a big city that could cover a lot of areas, that's pretty hard to find you, even unless you're in a rural area and there's nothing there. But otherwise, that's not really the way. The way they would track, let's say, a crowd is to do Stingray. So with Stingray, and you have a SIM card, they have a Stingray device, which is basically a fake cell tower. And then the Stingray would be in the area, so they would put a police car or a federal agency car with a Stingray device or whatever the model is. They're not all, the new models are not called Stingray, but I just generally call them Stingray because they're various kinds of sea creatures. But all they do is put a Stingray in there, and then your phones will start to emit the IMSI. So the phones will identify themselves based on the prodding of the Stingray device. So if somebody is out there, like a government, wanting to listen, and the big cities have this equipment. LA is one of the biggest recipients of this device, the Harris Corporation Stingray device. Places like New York, Washington, D.C., all these, Chicago, they would have a lot of these Stingrays. So the Stingray can just be in an area. So let's say you're in Washington, D.C., right in an area. You basically have the Stingray device there, and it just can keep recording all the IMSIs around it. And once you get the IMSIs, then you can go to the carrier and say, who the heck is this? Because the IMSI will identify the carrier, and then they'll know what your account is based on know your customer laws. So they'll identify you from the IMSI. So that's a secondary way of tracking on a phone. So what happens there if you take off the SIM card, or if you turn off the SIM card, or if you turn off the phone, then the SIM card shouldn't be transmitting. Uh, Unless it's an iPhone, then it'll be transmitting as an AirTag, not as the SIM card, but as an AirTag. But if the phone is off, or if you take the SIM card off, then theoretically this attack using Stingray is not going to work. Now, how do you geofence with Stingray? Well, because the device doing the tracking is in the vicinity, so you can track, nearby devices and say, oh, you were assuming that the Stingray is in the center, then it can track devices around it within a very short range. So Stingray is very short range. Because it's very short range, it's very accurate as far as finding people in the vicinity. So that's method 2. Okay. Now the thing about Stingray is usually it's initiated by government. However, you can make your own Stingray now. It may not be completely functional, but enough to track IMSIs. Yeah, that you can do. You can make a Stingray that tracks IMSIs and then disconnects. You can do that and not get too sophisticated. If you want something that actually hacks, meaning to intercept a phone conversation or whatever, something like that, that's a little bit more advanced, and that requires a full Stingray device. But to identify a phone with IMSI doesn't need any of that. There's actually a secondary way to track locations indirectly, and that is to, again, have a sensor and track the MAC addresses. Your phone is emitting a MAC address constantly. It does it on Bluetooth and it does it on Wi-Fi. So if you have a listener, you can listen to the MAC addresses and recognize that a phone is in the vicinity. The problem with that is there's no identity. A MAC address in itself doesn't tell you who you are. So that's probably not good for this purpose. I mean, for geofencing. It's good for identifying if somebody's coming back to a building, things like that. That's where the MAC address will say, I've seen this MAC address before, so it must. And then if you have a photo with it, you can say this photo. So if you can put a MAC address detector in, for example, a doorway of a building like a courthouse, have a camera there, and then a MAC address can be recorded, and then you would then know which MAC addresses may match people based on the photo. So you can do that. So it's fairly easy to do. So I always assume that it has to be done because it's not exactly a complicated. It's not a complicated technology. I mean, it's a very common thing that hackers can do. So for security, it's very interesting because you can track who's where just by MAC address. It doesn't identify you though. The Apple ID, Google ID with the location, that's specific. It identifies you. The one with the SIM card with IMSI, that identifies you because they can go to the carrier and find out who you are. Okay, so they'll have 100% proof that you were in the location because the Stingray tracker tracked you. There is no doubt they use Stingray in Washington, D.C. I mean, Washington, D.C. is full of Stingrays. So that's one way. Now, the problem with the methods I just mentioned to you is that most of these methods are not accessible to common people. So a third party wanted to investigate locations of people are not going to get much of an answer because these kinds of records are government connected. So like in Washington, D.C., the entity that would have had the Stingray in operation would have been an agency, a law enforcement or some other federal agency, and Apple and Google. And you can't access the data from Apple and Google unless you are tied with them with a warrant or something. So how does a common person, like corporate common entity, get location information? Well, there is a way. And I've told you the story before, and I will repeat the story. So some years back, somebody was playing with the stock market and said, I want to know what's actually going on in the Tesla factory. I've given this example many times. It was in the news, and you can go search the news for this. But it was featured everywhere, including the LA Times and so on. The the way it works is they. I mean, the way that this was used in this particular example with the Tesla case was a investment company wanted to get ahead of the information about Tesla because they wanted to know if they were going to, buy stock ahead of the earnings announcement or sell stock before the earnings announcement. And they wanted to have a little, information that would give them some advantage. And the way they did that was they tracked employee count at Tesla by finding out from commercial enterprises how many people were actually in the Tesla plant on any given day. And then they tracked this day by day over the period of the quarter, I believe, to see if the numbers grew. And it did. It grew by, if I recall from the article, it was 25%. So they knew that Tesla was hiring employees. Therefore, the issue was, could Tesla satisfy the demand by producing more cars? And they felt like they could because they hired 25% more employees or some such number. It doesn't matter what the number is, but around there. So it turned out to be true because during earnings announcement, Tesla announced that yes, they ramped up production, and that company that had that extra information made a killing. If I were them, I'd buy options cheap and then, and then sell when the price went up. And so probably sold their options for a big profit and for little investment, probably made millions, or probably made many millions. And that's how they got the information about that they were able to use. Now, how did they actually do that? Well, as it turns out, the suspect is the apps on your phone. So if you're not caring about the apps on your phone, you'll be in danger here. Now, which phones are affected by this? Pretty much any phone can be affected depending on what app you're running on it and what permissions you give it. It only is an issue if you give a location permission on an app. If you don't give location permission, it doesn't matter. Now, which apps are suspect here? The suspect apps have advertising. So one of the main apps that were tracking location and reporting it to a third party was the Weather Channel app. The Weather Channel app, by the way, is owned by IBM. The Weather Channel app is one of the biggest ones. That was just definitely, that's how they make money. So the Weather Channel itself is giving you information for free, but the Weather app is tracking your location. So you will say, well, you need to give us location if you want weather. And you willingly give it. And any app that has advertising, the advertising portion of it is being sold to a third party, meaning there's a little window or website within the website. It's called an iframe, and that website is picking up the location from the phone and then matching it to your ID, either some advertising ID or your Google ID or Apple ID, and then storing that, matching it to something else if they have any additional information, and then they have an identity and then a location. So you can see the consequences here, that if you don't care, like most people don't care, then there's an actual record of where everyone is going with these apps. This is pretty much a normie problem. It's not really a problem for those of you who follow me because you are actually concerned about the location permission. So, for example, in my case, I only allow permissions for location when I'm using the app in question. So if I'm not using the app, I don't want any permissions given for location if it's not relevant. Some dangerous apps that always ask for permission, in my opinion, are like Yelp, Craigslist, these kinds of apps. I don't know what they're doing. They may or may not be doing this, but as far as I know, there are thousands of apps with little advertising windows that are tracking location with your identity of the phone. They can't get the IMSI anymore or IMEI of the phone because it's not allowed to get that, but they can get the Google ID or the Apple ID and then an advertising identifier, which is fixed to the phone for the long run. and then use that to identify you without necessarily a name, but they can, match a location. So if you're asking, is there a way for somebody to track this? Yes, you can buy this data. I don't know the supplier of this data. There are many location companies, but the ones where you can actually get the advertising data, I don't recall the name of the companies, but there's so many of them, and because mostly the companies I deal with are the ones that wholesale IP address and location. That I know very well. But the companies that sell this kind of information, like who's at a certain location at a certain time, I don't know who's wholesaling that. So I can't tell you precisely, but that, obviously there's a source for it. And if you know where the source is, then you can get that information. So unfortunately for people who are very cavalier about their phones, they don't realize that they're part of that database, that somebody's tracking your moves and identifying you in some way. Solution is very simple. Just don't give location permissions, because that's it. If you use a bunch of apps and you don't think about it, location permission is going to be an issue. On a Google phone, most of you know, or a Brax2 privacy phone, most of you know to use mostly apps from F-Droid. F-Droid apps do not have this kind of tracking or advertising. So F-Droid apps are going to be safe from this. So you will be faced with some limited set of apps that has advertising and may do this. I don't know if Waze is doing this. It's possible. So be careful with using apps like that. Any app that is very insistent on getting a location, like a Yelp just doesn't want to operate unless you give it location. So anytime a app forces me to put a location in, I get very, very suspicious. So that's your normal clue that you don't want that. So fortunately, it's easy to stop, but it's funny, it's easy to stop the location tracking by third-party advertisers, and yet they can get location of probably 99% of the people, because 99% of the people don't watch this channel. So if you watch this channel, you will know that that's an easy one to fix. You cannot fix Apple and Google tracking you without changing the phone. You cannot fix the Stingray problem unless you take off the SIM card or disconnect the SIM card by software, which like Brax2 allows. So those solutions require some physical action with the phone. The third issue with the advertisers is easily solved. Just be careful about which app you give permission to. The truth is, if 80% of you cared about location and was blocking that permission from most apps, these advertising gimmicks of stealing locations would disappear. They're not going to be able to be sustainable. Okay, so it's that simple. So the question was, because there was a movie released, and they were tracking people, and the question was, could that be done? Yeah, it can be. Yeah. Won't they be able to track those that did not get permission on their phones? So apps. The problem is you don't know which apps. So if you have a lot of apps on your phone, the more chances are that someone will track your location. And then the other possibility is somebody may not carry a phone. So if you're not carrying a phone, then you're not going to be tracked. Okay? So that is really, obviously not carrying a phone is a solution. Not an iPhone. Not with an iPhone. With an iPhone, you're zucked. Which is why people are asking me if there's an answer with iPhone. No, the answer with iPhone is to dump it. You can de-Google Google Pixels. A lot of them you can de-Google, but you cannot de-Google an iPhone. You cannot take off the iPhone. You cannot de-Apple an iPhone. So basically, it's a non-starter. So, if you're tied to your Apple phone, rethink that. Maybe it's time to leave that at home. Yeah, they got your location at home, but don't give it anymore. So my iPhone, I do have an iPhone. It's inside a Faraday bag like this with copper in it, because even when the phone is off, it's still tracking. So as long as there's some charge in there, you're zucked. Okay, so I hope that kind of gives you kind of a big picture rundown, and we'll go into your questions and answers Q&A section in a second. Now, before I do that, let me just talk about my sponsor. My sponsor is Linode. Linode is a cloud service provider. So if you want servers like Linux servers, web servers, uh, maybe you want WordPress, you want to run some Nextcloud so you can store your pictures in the cloud in your own server, run your own video, do or learn Linux and learn to make Linux servers. This is a very inexpensive way because on Linode you can set up a server for as inexpensively as $5 a month complete. So if you want to go learn or try things out, if you even run a simple website, if you don't have a lot of traffic, $5 a month will actually do it. And if you go to linode.com/RobBraxman, they will give you a $200 credit, which you can apply to your purchases in the cloud for the next 2 months. So consider that if you're looking at cloud service providers. Linode is my favorite. I've used them all. Amazon, GoDaddy, this, that. Yeah, used them all, and I'm staying with Linode. Linode is running most of my servers. I have a lot of servers running on Linode, and they're really the best to me in terms of tech support and price. Okay, let's see if I can track your questions here. I was not looking at the questions. You got a lot of here. So what about keeping the phone in Faraday bag except for when you want to use it? Then why even do that? Just turn it off. The only device that really requires a Faraday bag is an iPhone, because you can't turn off an iPhone. An iPhone turned off is still tracking you. So for a standard, let's say, Pixel like this, so this is a Pixel 4 XL, you can turn these off. So yeah, this is another Pixel 4 XL. Yeah, you can turn these off. These are not a problem to turn off. But an iPhone, no. It turns into an AirTag. Somebody was telling me, you're like, doing FUD here, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and you're you're communicating things and misstating things and overstating things and putting fear into people. No, I'm sick and tired of that kind of comment, because I explain the issues in many videos. You're not watching the videos. I can't go repeat it. So yes, iPhones have no solution. So if you're stuck with an iPhone, then sorry, it's not an answer. This is a Faraday bag. Yes, it's copper lined. This is a copper cloth. So you can see you can put something in there, and then look how it folds. So when it folds, there's no opening. So the fabric itself is made of copper. So it's like a copper mesh, very tight mesh. So it's, I tried it. You put a phone in it, and you can see it disconnects from the network. Can iPhone track you through a Faraday bag? No, iPhone cannot track you through a Faraday bag. But again, the moment you take it out, then it's tracking you. So the question is, what? Will you offer the Pixel 5 soon? I have Pixel 5s, Anthony. I have Pixel 5s. Now, Pixel 5, we install the usual, which is Lineage OS, or you can ask for an alternate operating system. We can install others. So if you want to install some other operating system, we can do it. So on Pixel 6, I believe the only operating system we do on that is Calyx. So we can install Calyx or Graphene or whatever you want on a Pixel. Brax phones come with Brax 2, Brax OS only. So Brax OS cannot be put on any other phone. It's really specific to the Brax 2 phone. I've sold a lot of Brax 2s. Brax 2 is now on Amazon, selling really fast on Amazon. So I'm gonna have to refill the stock. It's really moving fast. So I'm actually surprised at how many people are buying this. So I'm grateful to you guys that it supports the channel when you're buying the Brax 2 phone. And also I have the VPN product, the Brax Mail for email, and VPN router software. The problem, guys, is I cannot buy Raspberry Pi, so my router business is shut down because I cannot find Raspberry Pis. So yeah, I ordered my last order of Raspberry Pis was in October, and I got a very small stock, like 25, which was delivered last few weeks ago, and ran out in a week. And yeah, and I can't get any more. So they don't even want to offer. They don't even talk to me because they don't have any stock. So yeah, so I have many products that are meant to help you. And in case you're wondering what the difference is with my email product, it's the main issue with email's not safe generally. So when somebody makes a promise to you that they have encrypted email and all that, they're full of it, because email is not safe. It can't be safe because of the header. The header is revealing information and metadata without even caring about the content. And a company that offers you encrypted email, like a Proton Mail, is also seeing your unencrypted traffic, so it can actually profile you via the unencrypted traffic. So therefore, there is no actual value to me in using the encrypted email platforms. What is of actual value in email is the main source of tracking in email, and that is the header. The header. So Brax Mail does not have a header. It strips it out. So when you use Brax Mail, my product Brax Mail, and you get 5 domains. So if your email is Charlie at braxmail.net, Charlie at email1.me, Charlie at bytes.me, Charlie at braxsecure.net, and so on. There's 5 domains. Then you can use those with different companies with with one inbox, and so you can kind of have some control over who's using your email. And the other thing is that there's no header, so they can't get your IP address. It's very dangerous to use email without a VPN. So yeah, so I love that. I don't have to worry about the VPN being on when I'm using Brax Mail, because the IP address is stripped out. Okay, so anyway, that's something that one of the products that I have, and of course the VPN product. So yeah, all of these support the cause here, and I really appreciate the many of you that support. It's a good percentage of the subscriber base that are buying products from me. We have Brax 2 phones, obviously. That's a new one, but we can still sell you Pixels, mostly Pixels. We stopped carrying the other brands. So Pixels of various kinds, Pixel 3 and up to Pixel 6. We don't stock a Pixel 6, but we can do it for you. And we can install the standard one, which we install Lineage OS, which is degoogled, or you can choose another operating system by request. So is Ant Plus a potential threat for tracking? You mean is that are you referring to the, I don't know what Ant Plus is referring to. Is that the Bitcoin service? All the surveillance done for Rob Maritza BQ asks, Verizon uses C-band. They in my zip. Does Brax phone work with band C? There is no band C. I don't know what a band C is. There's no band C. From my recollection, Verizon uses band 2, band 4 and band, I think it's 13. It's in my video. So they must do a lot in band 2, and they must not use band 4 as often, because everyone has used the Brax 2 phone on Verizon, and so far everyone has worked with Verizon. So I'm actually surprised, even though we don't have band 4. In the summer, we'll be releasing so maybe in a month and a half or a couple of months here, the phones that will have band 4 and will have a registered IMEI. Currently, the phones we're releasing are unregistered IMEIs. You must have MicroG. You must have MicroG. Must. You're going to make a mistake if you don't have MicroG. MicroG is a spoofer. Why would you not want a spoofer? ANT is a wireless personal network protocol. I don't know what that is. I don't know what ANT is. I mean, that acronym is used for other things. Band C is a satellite, usually called C-band. I don't know what that is. That's not a standard thing that phones normally state that they support. The bands are numeric. So I don't know what band C is. Never heard of it. Are your own Brax phone using it now? Using what now? MicroG, yes. When will your Pixels be on Amazon? I don't have any Pixels on Amazon currently. Pixels are on my store. I don't. Might be too expensive for me to stock Pixels on Amazon. So yeah, does MicroG need location permissions? I would control my permissions at the app level, not at MicroG. MicroG does not. MicroG can spoof Google Maps, so it's up to you. It's optional, obviously, but then if you ban location on MicroG, then no app can use it. So you may not want that. You might want to do it on an app per app basis. Okay, so MicroG is fine. It's a spoofer. Aurora Store is a spoofer, so spoofers are good. They're not reporting you to anyone. That's what they're for, to make apps. See, let's give you an example. You download an app, let's say Signal. Signal expects a Google service in there to handle notifications. When it doesn't find one, it doesn't operate too well. So it needs one to think that it has notifications. MicroG then accesses Google's Play Store and says, "Hey, I'm Google here, and I'll handle notifications for you," which MicroG does. MicroG handles the notifications. The app doesn't know that there's no Google, so it sends a signal to a certain port and says, "Where's my notification?" And it gets it, says, that must be Google. But it's not Google. It's being passed through MicroG. So, and in the process of doing that, it's spoofing your identity. And it creates you have to give it device registration permissions, which gives it a fake device registration. You can even spoof the device and make sure it's a wrong device. You can do that. So yeah, MicroG is preloaded on Brax OS as well as Aurora Store, and it's preloaded on Lineage OS on all of our phones. So sadly, I can't post links on chat. Yes, I don't allow links on chat. Is Volta Wireless a honeypot for NZA? Now, my last video talked about Volta. I don't have any relationship with Volta. But the solution that Volta offers is something that I may be able to offer too later on. But their plan is actually not bad. It's priced well. So if you're thinking of doing this, then it could be a good solution because it's priced well. The way Volta works is it's data only. So you're not getting an actual phone. You're getting data only. They're handling the phone side through voice over IP, kind of like a Skype. Okay? But their own app. They're doing it from their own servers. So in order to get phone calls and texts, you have to do it through their Volta app. So the Volta app is your dialer, your text machine is the Volta app. So you have to install the Volta app, obviously, and then you install their SIM card. So that's how that works. And all the calls will go through Volta to you. So the thing is that it's data. It's a data only plan. So because of that, there's no traffic going through the PSTN, the public switched telephone network, which, as I've already said in many videos, is accessible directly by the CALEA law, the Communications Assistant for Law Enforcement Act. So they can actually just go on their little terminals and their computers and wiretap any phone directly on the PSTN without pretty much any precursor to that. They can do it immediately. If you're not on PSTN, they can't do that. So if you're on voice over IP, which is what it is, and it's encrypted to that point, yeah, so only, in theory, only Volta can listen to you. So Volta is not a U.S. company, as far as I know. I don't actually know where they are. So yeah, Braxton will work with Volta. Volta should work with any phone actually, because it's just an app and then a SIM card. So any phone that can have a SIM card and an app will work. So it's a data only plan. Now, let's say you don't want to use Volta. You don't have to. You can do the same thing with other solutions. Let's say you go to T-Mobile and get a data only plan. So you can get a data only unlimited plan from T-Mobile for $50, let's say, okay? Which is the more expensive one. So that's the high end of unlimited data, is $50 from T-Mobile. So $50 for one phone gives you unlimited data. So there you get your data, you get your internet. So now the question is, how do you get your voice? For voice, you need a voice over IP provider. So let's say you said, I'm going to use Viber. Yeah, you can use Viber. If you use Viber app with a data only plan, you're doing something similar to what Volta is doing. Okay, now the convenience of the Volta is they do everything together. So they give you the app and the SIM card in one. And I believe their USA plan is only $19.99 a month. So that's obviously significantly cheaper than the $50 that you pay at Verizon. The difference is you're doing roaming. You're only roaming all the time. So don't know if that's a good signal or a bad signal. Don't know how high speed that is. If you have a T-Mobile direct one that's not roaming, in theory it should be faster, but we don't know. I don't know for sure. Okay? So anyway, hopefully that gives you some information on that. Let's see. Raise your hand if you're using Rob's new phone now here tonight. Yeah, there's a lot of phones already out there. There's a lot of phones. So yeah, so if you have a Brax phone and you have an Amazon account, I would appreciate you going to Amazon and putting some nice reviews on there. That really would be appreciated, since obviously most of you are very happy with the phone. So yeah, please put in a nice comment on there. And yeah, if you have an Amazon account, that would be so appreciated. That of course some people react only to reviews. So somebody did a 3-star review and said happy. I don't know what that is, but that's funny. FaceTime is not PSTN. FaceTime is using Apple, so Apple's the one tracking you. So FaceTime is kind of similar to, Jitsi and some of these other apps, and it doesn't get intercepted by the CALEA law in theory. So, but Apple could. Apple could intercept it. What is an UMA phone? I don't have a phone yet. Awaiting to begin with Rob's Tech. UMA is a voice over IP hardware. So if you want to use voice over IP in your house, you plug it into your internet and you can get phone service through it. I have an UMA. So that gives you a phone number like a landline. So UMA is like a landline equivalent on the internet, which you can move. You can move it anywhere. You can plug it in any place with an internet. So let's say you have a main home and a vacation home, and you have an UMA as your landline. So you unplug it from your home, you bring it with you, and you plug it into your vacation home. You keep the number. The same number will ring anywhere. If you have a hotspot or one of those hotspot routers, LTE routers, if you plug in the UMA in there, you can run it anywhere with the same phone number. So that's the advantage of that, if you do not want to use a mobile phone. So it's just an option. It's obviously less flexible than using a phone, but there's no it's replacing a landline. I don't necessarily think it's the solution for all. Okay, so what else? What else am I missing here? I keep this Android phone. I just keep these Android. I consider it a raw phone for sure. I've heard of Q phones. Even I don't know what a Q phone is. Our private health data is shared in the form of biometrics over carrier, then stored in the server where an AI platform create a health profile of every individual. I don't know. That sounds like a conspiracy theory the way you're stating that, Rick. In case you didn't know, the Face ID on an iPhone is not something that actually leaves the phone. It's not, the picture of your face doesn't get used in identification. The logic for recognizing a face is on the phone itself. So that's not necessarily a direct threat like that. The direct threat is a cloud app doing facial recognition like a Facebook. That's very, very dangerous. So the fact that Facebook said they're not going to be doing facial recognition like that anymore is very good. So because that's the biggest dangers. Because if you could do it in the cloud, then you don't need a device. They have that. When you put fingerprints on a phone, don't be afraid of that, because that's actually not your actual fingerprint. The fingerprint sensor on a phone is a capacitance measurement. Capacitance, okay? So a capacitance measurement is just a number, and it doesn't give you a fingerprint. You can't back into a fingerprint from a capacitance. It's kind of like a hash. It's a one-way thing. So there's no actual danger to fingerprint, and it doesn't become biometric. But you have your health data is in fact stored centrally, but not through that. Your health data is sent to the government through your doctor. Okay, now how do I know this? Because I wrote some of this software. Okay, some of the software is being used to send your data from your doctor's office to the government. Well, I wrote some of that software, and I still support some of that. So I have some state contracts that do that. So yeah, so when you go to the doctor, whatever you do there, it sends out your history, your history of present illness, your past history, your social history. If you smoke, don't smoke, your sexual habits and all that. That is part of social history. And then your diagnosis, and then your treatment and procedures, all of that goes to the government. Okay? That's, if there's any doubt that that's going to the government, have no doubt, because I wrote the software. It is sending it. Okay? I don't like the fact that it does that, but it's doing that. Okay, so, believe me, it's doing that because I wrote it. Okay, so, yeah. So somebody said, well, they're collecting biometric data on this and that. They are collecting it, but not the way you think. So whatever your doctor does and records, yeah, that's being sent. There's no doubt. Every lab test, everything is being sent. They're currently not sending like pictures, so they're not sending like X-rays and images, photos. They're not sending that currently. They're just sending text data. So, but much of that text data is coded. You know, there's ICD-10 codes and CPT-4 codes and so on. So it's very, very coded information. So, meaning they can run a population and see who has this symptom. They can find that in the population very, very easily because it goes into the HIE, Health Information Exchange. Okay? So, yeah, if you go, your blood pressure, your temperature, whatever they measure at the doctor's office, that goes into the HIE. So, okay, I'm not standing right now, northern chimp. I'm sitting down. So anyway, hopefully that voice data is being captured. Actually, that's my next video. Voice data is being captured by private enterprise. So you already know Alexa, Echo, Siri, Google Assistant, all that, capturing your voice. Okay? And Alexa, of course, is listening in your house. And some of you are saying, oh, Amazon says it's all safe and all that. Yeah, if you want to believe them, then you can believe them. But watch the next video. I went to Brax.me once and it asked for email. I thought, or it. Email is optional on Brax.me. You can provide email because it allows you to recover email, but it's not required. It's not part of the initial sign up. The only time that you're asked for email is, it doesn't ask you actually, but you can enter the email later on. So 90% of the people on Brax.me do not put any email in, but you cannot recover your account if you lose it. Okay, nobody's forcing you, but if you want to be able to recover your account, have a Google Authenticator or some authenticator app like Authy, or email or a SMS number, and then you can recover your account. If your account is important, put some recovery on there. Your recovery can be a Brax mail account, so which means we don't actually know who you are either. Okay, so you just want secure voice text data internet searches. Can't do that. If you're going to say, Siri, search for whatever, you're zucked. No, there's no answer to that. Use your zucking fingers. Go type your search. Don't talk to it. Don't talk to it. If you want you're passing your search thoughts to Google, yeah, talk to it. Otherwise, don't do that. I don't do that. Should we use a voice changer? No. I just want secure. I just don't like when they use it for no-fly zones on DJI. I just bought something from YouTube. YouTube gave me an ad selling me a drone for $149, which looks like a Mavic DJI, and I said, well, instead of $1,000. $149 seems reasonable, so I bought a couple of them. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it works. I'll tell you. So, anyway, type your search. Right wiggles, that's correct. Type your search. 2K donkeys? I thought it was mules. So, donkeys now? It's fake, but be careful. They scam me. Just get another phone and call yourself randomly making money. Okay. By the way, yeah, obviously there's a YouTube must dislike me because it's not sharing my videos beyond my subscriber count. So my impression count never exceeds the number of subscribers. So, which means that I'm not getting additional subscribers, and many of my subscribers don't even get my notification. So yeah, there's definitely something going on there, and I'll blame myself. Maybe my videos aren't that interesting. So yeah, so if my videos are not that interesting, then it's my fault. So you tell me, are my videos interesting? If not, then I need to work on it. I just bought a ham. Ham radio or an actual ham? Uh, every one here share with 3 and tell to do the same. So yeah, you think it's interesting? So I don't know. I don't have an ego. I always assume that I'm doing something wrong. And yeah, see, Jim and Jet says I don't show up in your feed. Yeah, because Google apparently doesn't think you like my videos. Either that or it's actually very suppressed. I don't know. I'm very careful with these videos. Each video is not a repeat. There's always additional information on each one of them. So yeah. So I don't know. Obviously, the counts are showing that the videos are not being fed. Some of the videos have very good click-through rates, so which means that you like them, and yet they never get past 10,000 views. I don't know why. Why would the video that has a nice click-through rate not get shared? So sometimes I wonder, like, hey, wait a minute, the video did well, and yet it wasn't shared because the topic may be too controversial, and then they don't share it. I don't really know why. Maybe they marked me for bad for advertising. Who knows? Or maybe I'm actually targeted. I don't really know. Either way, we're surviving here. So if you buy my products and you support what I do, then we'll survive and we'll carry on. I may not have a chance to become big, and I'm currently the largest privacy channel on YouTube, but that may not be the case for too long. Maybe someone else will catch up. So right now I'm the number one privacy channel, but I'm not growing, so somebody's going to catch up with me here. So yeah, not growing at all. So yeah, I'm just doing my best. Every video takes so much work, and I put all the effort into all the research in doing that. James Mason, I've seen the preview, not the actual video, but I get the point. So GitBub, they're mirroring my screen. Mental outlaw topics overlaps with yours. No, not really. Not really. That's actually incorrect. Mental outlaw is part of that same group like the rest of them. They're very traditional in what they talk about. I don't actually talk about the same stuff. My stuff goes in a different angle. My angle is always different than anybody else. So I don't think anybody uses my angle. So because they don't really, frankly, I don't think any other channel understands the issue in the same way I understand it. So they're always thinking of a problem in cybersecurity terms rather than what it is. It's an actual privacy issue. So so that is the main fault with a lot of these channels that are trying to do this. And they really don't know anything. All they know is cybersecurity, because obviously some of them work in cybersecurity, so that's all they know. They don't really know what I know. So yeah, so they can do whatever they want to do. And some of them speak badly about me, and not going to waste my time with them because, you judge for yourself. But the information that's often stated about what I talk about indicates their lack of understanding of the issue. So a lot of them just are in the cybersecurity world. And let me tell you this, if you attack the problem from a cybersecurity standpoint, you will never think there's a threat, because many of the threats are invisible. They're not actually made known to you, and they cannot be tested because you don't have access to them. So if you don't see the source code, there's nothing to attack. So until somebody attacks something, they assume that it's that the threat does not exist. That is not the way I operate. I'm more of an intelligence operative here, and I look at the signals, and then from the signals I can see what people are doing, because I understand the technology and I understand how it's going to be used, and typically I'm right. I'll give you just one good example to show you, how good I am at actually judging some of this. So I made a video. This is really funny. I made a video saying, is it possible for a phone to track you when the phone is off? That was the premise of the video. I did not know if any phone were actually doing that, tracking you with a phone off. I said, I theorize, if somebody wants going to do this, you're going to use Bluetooth BLE, and the one company that might use this would be Apple, I said, because they're already using Bluetooth BLE actively on the phone with Apple AirTags. And then when I posted that video, somebody wrote in the comments, Apple's already doing that. And then I looked at the release notes for iOS 15 point whatever, and sure enough, they are doing it exactly as I said in the video. And so that's the way I operate. I look at the technology and say, who would use this? Who is likely to use this, and how would they likely use it? And that is an example of no one in cybersecurity would have guessed that if they're using cybersecurity methods, because they're not using intelligence methods. It's called reverse engineering. I'm reverse engineering the problem. I'm saying, if I wanted to do this, how would I do it? This is why those dangers I say about the iPhone with client-side scanning and all that, it's very, very dangerous stuff, because once they're empowered with these techniques and they load it on the OS, which they have, they can do things on that OS that you cannot even imagine. They can have the AI do things. So your iPhone can look at your environment without anyone knowing. Nobody can know. And let the AI of the phone say, let me find out certain situations. Maybe let's say that they teach the phone, look for domestic violence. Okay. Could they teach a phone to watch for domestic violence? The answer is yes. Well, that's pretty scary. That's pretty scary. Now, let's apply that to little kids, and then, before long, you might have somebody from the social whatever department come in your house and take your child away, just based on what the AI may have thought it has seen on the phone. So there's a lot of effects of this, and you got to be careful with some of these technologies. And a lot of these privacy experts, so-called, are not really understanding the problem in the same way that I do. And they say I'm doing FUD because they have to prove it in a laboratory. Well, that's pretty stupid. How do you prove that what Snowden was talking about with Prism and all that? You cannot prove that. That came from a whistleblower. Okay? So some of my information also comes from whistleblowers, which obviously I'm not going to tell you. So yeah, my channel's big enough that I get a lot of information from different sources as well. So yeah, so if you want to compare me to some of these channels, you will find that I am different, and the information is different, and the recommendations are different. I'm probably the only channel that tells you not to use Proton Mail. Not that, if you want to use Proton Mail, you can use Proton Mail. Just don't expect it to provide anything special. Use Proton Mail because you like it as an email provider. And, does it give you any special benefits? I don't think so. Is it better than Gmail? Yes. Is it better than Braxmail? For the extra cost? Not really. I don't see what it's going to give you. So anyway, that's just... Steve V asks, should we be concerned if we see a bunch of Bluetooth signals that are not from phones? There's a bunch of Bluetooth signals everywhere. How do you know they're from phones or not phones? How do you know they're from anything? That's the problem now. There are millions and millions of Bluetooth signals as client and servers. What you're seeing on your device is a list of Bluetooth servers. They're only the servers. You're not seeing the clients. There's actually more Bluetooth devices. Just like your Wi-Fi is emitting a MAC address, your Bluetooth is also emitting a MAC address. What is a private email, Gary? I don't believe that any email is actually private. What I'm trying to tell you is the best email is one that can eliminate the header where your IP address is. That's the biggest danger. Otherwise, try not to use email too much. Have I been sailing? Yes, I always sail. What happens if you eat an Apple AirTag? It's not going to taste like an apple. So, can AI tell if domestic violence on TV? Yeah, I'm sure it can recognize TV versus real life. Yes, the AI should be able to see that. Beth, I can't play keyboard here. I don't have one here. But it's at the beginning of video. If you do replay, I play piano at the beginning. I'll be using a lot of public Wi-Fi with my new job. Any suggestions protecting myself? You must use a VPN when you're in public Wi-Fi. You must use a VPN in public Wi-Fi because you will get hacked. You will get hacked. Use VPN in public Wi-Fi. You must. It's not an option. Not an option. I would never, don't ever go to a hotel and just use the Wi-Fi in a hotel without a VPN. That's not smart. Not smart. How long can an AirTag last on one charge? A year? A year. My CTO is on top of this jazz also, and thank goodness cleared them header details already. In my band, let's see, I got one's a programmer, one's also an IT consultant, and another one is CTO. Yeah, yeah. In my jazz band, they're all in tech. So interesting how the Apple logo is a bitten apple, and the first Apple computer was priced. My Gmail is the worst, constantly hacked. Change your password. I mean, you have to understand that email is not secure. So, email is used to guarantee identities. Pretty much that's all it's for. So when in doubt, change the password. That's it. Don't overthink it. You'll never fill up their memory. I'm liking the high RAM and storage on the newer Pixels. I'll be checking yours out. Yeah, but Anthony, you're telling me that you're going to rely on the phone as your primary device, and I don't like that. Maybe you're better off with a device with only 64 gigabyte, because the moment you start thinking, oh, I like the high memory and all that, that means you're going to put all your photos on the phone, and then you're going to be sucked. Use a computer. Use a computer. A computer is 50 times safer than a phone. I don't even care which computer. It's 50 times safer than a phone. If you use a Linux computer, you will be much safer. But at the very least, a computer does not have the sensors to track you. A computer is safer. A lot of the stuff like location tracking and all that is very minimal on a computer because it doesn't have a sensor. Okay? I wonder if people in the tech world who criticize your approach can actually be that naive, complacent, or just lying. No, most of them are young. Davey, 85. They're just young. They question me because they don't understand where I'm coming from. And I've obviously been doing this for a long time. I've been in tech for a long time, and my role in cybersecurity, which it's very, very advanced and it's been long-standing, is that I created enterprise systems. That's what I did for a living for decades, right? I created enterprise systems, and I have big clients that even today are using my software, even though I'm not in that field anymore. But when I was in that field, these big companies are using my software, and when there's a problem, even including cyber security attacks, they fly me in because they can't solve it. Then I have to solve it for them. And so yes, I would. This is way back when. I mean, that was a long time ago. So they have to pay a lot of money to get me to go there. A lot of money. So I would go there, and go research the problem and solve it for some of these big hospitals and so on when they can't solve a problem. So that's real life experience here. So often, there may be an actual cybersecurity attack, or sometimes it's just some internal network error that I got to go figure out. So when they can't figure it out, that's what I do. I have to figure it out for them. And that's the exception, because normally my staff figures it out, and I'm only called in when my staff cannot figure it out. So, my background is obviously, long-standing. So I don't do any of that anymore. I don't work with these. I don't work in that field anymore. So I have no direct involvement now. But obviously, I know what I'm talking about since I was doing it for a long time. So, but my main role was to develop enterprise software. That's what I did. I developed it. I developed many things from scratch. So, and I had a programming staff, and I ran a department of programmers, and I was the chief software architect. So that's what I did. So that's what I did for a long time. And I'm basically a C programmer. So most of my career was as a C programmer. So some of these people are like, they go to my GitHub. This is kind of hilarious to me. They go to my GitHub and they say, "Look at this PHP code. It sucks." It's like, fuck you. I actually just learned PHP to do one project, which was Brax.me. I've never used PHP before. I'm a C programmer. So I did servers and distributed systems and low-level programming and Windows apps and so on, all running in C. Not even C++. We're talking raw C. It's pretty hard stuff. Okay? Yeah, Perl. Who uses Perl? Come on. Yeah, I can do Perl. I can do any language. But most of my stuff has been in C. And I don't like using a lot of high-level solutions because oftentimes you will get zucked with it. So I wrote my own. Almost everything I wrote was something I wrote myself, including the server. I didn't use SOAP servers and Microsoft this and no. I wrote my own. I wrote everything, including servers and client software, server software, email clients. I wrote them all. I wrote them all because I don't want to rely on somebody else. So I wrote them all. Okay, so that's why when somebody says, "Well, what do you know? What do you know about email?" So, I know if the company is secure, yes. they've contacted me. So you expected B plus work. C, yes, C. So yeah, so yeah. So some of these, other channels, and they make comments about me. It's like, you know, get a life, okay? I don't have to prove myself because I don't have to prove myself because I'm already there. So I don't have to do this. I can retire now and not do this YouTube business, okay? I do this because it's a passion. I actually believe in this. So, as long as it's worth doing, I'll keep doing it. It's not, I don't have to do this. It's not necessary for my life. I'm doing it because, I believe in the business, and I believe in, I believe in the message, and it's a hard one. I'm fighting something that's extremely difficult to do. So yeah, so hopefully that kind of gives you a comparison between me and some of these other channels that claim they know a lot about the topic. Yeah, I got attacked by that guy, the graphene guy, and it's just hilarious. He didn't even write Android. So he modifies Android, and it's like, oh, I'm such a genius. I made my own graphene OS. It's like, yeah, it's nice of you. You did a good job. Good job. Not gonna take you away from saying good job, but just don't belittle something you don't understand. I am not at the level of making modifications to Android. Okay, that's not what I did. Okay, I did something bigger than that, much bigger. Okay, much bigger. I wrote the software. I didn't go revise somebody's software. I built it from scratch in C. Okay, I built it from scratch. So a lot of my software were being sold by pretty big companies. They put their name on it, but I wrote it. So a large company will sell the software and say, yeah, this is one of our products, but I wrote it. Okay? So when you say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, it's like, you're full of it. That's just hilarious. I don't need to go, worry about this too much, because it's like, to me, it's a joke. Because, it's all these young people, they think they know it all. So, yeah, I get attacked all the time by especially some of these young cybersecurity, nuts that actually think they understand the problem. And the problem is actually pretty simple, which they haven't figured out. So anyone who understands in this channel what the problem is, can somebody tell me what the privacy problem is? It's actually just one word. Does anybody know what the privacy problem is? Because none of these channels say it. None. Not one. What is the privacy problem in one word? Come on, guys. Some of you are like listening to me over and over. You must know this. Identity. That's correct. That's it. Some of these experts. Look at these people who've been here for a long time. They've heard me say this. Identity. It's not the data. It's not the encryption in your Proton mail. Can you be identified on Proton mail? Yes. So what is the point of the encryption if they know who you are? Identity. If you break the identity with Google, Apple, Proton mail, any other product, then they don't know who's talking. Identity solves the privacy issue. It's all about identity, not encryption. Identity. Okay, why can't these guys figure it out? Because they don't know anything. They don't know anything. They don't work in the intelligence community. They don't understand that the way the government or a intelligence community searches for data with the metadata, it's all they have to do is match the data to an identity. They don't actually need to hear the phone conversation. They just need to know the identity of the players. Then they know everything. If I were Facebook, all I have to do is find out who's talking to whom on what platform and what time of day, how frequently, and what the relationships are between the people, and I know who's having an affair. It's very simple. Identity. So all these stupid fools on all these channels saying that I don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know what you're talking about because you have not done this. You have not searched for people like this. I'm very good at searching for people. I've proven this live. I have been on Periscope proving this live. I get attacked on Periscope, and the next day I will identify who attacked me. I have so many videos like that. I don't want to do it anymore because it's very time consuming. I admit it will take me the whole night to do it. But they attack me on social media, and then the next day I find out who they are, and then I publicly reveal who they are, and they are scared of what I can do if they attack me. Now, what is the experience of these nuts that go attack me? Do they actually know how to do that? Okay, so that's an example of why they don't understand that when I am looking for something, I am looking for an identity. If I can't find the identity, I cannot do a single thing. Therefore, the answer is, if you want to beat me, you just have no identity. If you have no identity, then I can't find you. It's that simple. Furthermore, in privacy, it's the same thing. If you do not have an identity, so if your media, if your social media, your phones, you have untrackable identities like on a de-Googled phone or a Braxton privacy phone, no identity, then of course they can't connect the data that they find. Okay? So that is what that all means, and that's why I am different. So yeah, there's actually no channel like me that I know of. Now, there are people that have, a good amount of knowledge about what I'm talking about, like Steve Gibson, who I follow on YouTube, and he knows a lot. So yeah, he may know as much as I know, but he sided with the system. So they're basically supporting their corporate sponsors. So, like, they know they're being spied on, but they say, we're getting paid, so what the heck? So I took a side where I don't side with corporate interests. So, that's why I have very few sponsors, because I don't take them. I don't like to be influenced by sponsors. So I take very few sponsors, and it's only because, it doesn't impact what I talk about. Okay, so there you go. So hopefully that kind of gives you a difference about what I talk about. It is interesting when you know what I know. It is interesting. So yeah, but some of these channels are catching up, and because they're popular with the young people, and they're going to overtake me, and I'll be in the background. Even the hated one is having problems now. I passed the hated one, but that doesn't mean anything because, I'm not much further than the hated one, and we're both not really getting increased views from YouTube. It's almost like they set a target and say, this is the max you can go, and then we don't want to deal with your types anymore. So yeah, so it's kind of sad, that channels like hated one are suppressed, just like I feel like this channel is suppressed too. But I'm not going to go blame that on that. And I have 76,000 followers on Odyssey, and I am now ranked, I don't know, number 8, I believe. Number 7, number 8. I mean, that's pretty much on the top of Odyssey, so that's pretty good. Okay, I'm out of time, guys. So yeah, the hated one is a channel. The hated one. It's a channel on YouTube. It's a long time. It was the biggest privacy channel before I passed it. So so we're the top two privacy channels, the hated one and me. Okay, so anyway, thank you for watching, my friends, and I'll see you next time, and watch the next video. Watch today's video, this week's